For centuries, expertise was defined by what you knew. Today, technology and AI can generate expert-level answers in seconds, collapsing the value of raw information. So join us tonight as we break down this critical shift, exploring how human judgment is becoming the most valuable skill in the age of abundant knowledge. Let's get into it. Welcome to The Rundown. Hello, welcome. Good after morning. Good after morning.
It's the morning after.
Can I tell you something? I just picked up new glasses. So I know they look exactly the same because I have no sense of style. So I went to the eye doctor last week and he said, these were his words to me. He said, you're going to need to give these glasses a couple of weeks. Everything's going to. So I literally 2 hours ago put them on. I can't see a damn, like my perspective is off. I have no, it's, I can't even think straight. Tamra, help. Good after morning.
My question is, do you feel taller? Whenever I get new glasses, I always feel taller.
Really?
It's like the greatest thing for 24 hours. I get to feel like a tall person.
I don't feel tall. It's just, I guess the prescription is so different and my brain and my eyes are just going to have to readjust to it. And they absolutely have not. And I can't even think straight. But I'm glad you're here.
I feel like that's going to be my next eye
That's
visit.
you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the truth is, I
I'm
don't
glad
need
to
new
be
glasses to help me not think straight. That's sort of my resting place.
Resting mode.
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Mr. Tony Mobley? How you doing?
I am fine. I'm happy to be here.
Good. Good to see you. Good to see you. Oh, I see Lois putting on her glasses for me. Thank you, Lois.
Well, I wouldn't want to be the only one with no glasses on the panel.
Wait, is that all? Oh my gosh. Look at that. Look at this gorgeous glass-filled. That's fantastic. Thank you for finding that, Lois. I appreciate that. And I'm so glad that I found Dave Troutman. Hello, sir.
Hi.
Now, Dave doesn't just have glasses, as you know.
No.
Dave loves playing with his Vision Pro. He joined this meeting earlier as both Dave and Dave's what's it called? Your avatar.
Doppelganger or
Your
avatar,
doppelganger.
yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Good to see
No,
you.
I'm having a great time with it. It's becoming very useful. Argued with Leo about its utility, but it's the future. I guess I'll just have to say that it's the future. And
It's not the future. But okay, moving on. Let's say hello
Moving
to Mr.
on.
John
Ow.
Edelson. Hello, John.
Greetings, and yes, I'm wearing my glasses. You could probably see the reflection in them, but if I do it right, they won't reflect. That's thanks to my maker of my eyeglasses.
Oops, sorry, I muted myself. Well, there you go. You look fantastic. I have to change your name, though, because I have you in here as someone else. And you are most definitely not someone else. We have some news to get to this week, so what do you say we just jump right into it? So have any of you already submitted your information to get your payout, your big payout? No?
I have not, but I'm eligible.
Payout from what?
apparently.
So Apple is paying goodness gracious, that's the wrong screen. See, that's what you get. That's what you get when you try and fix things right before the thingy dingy. Hold on, I have to change this to that, and then I'll go over there, and that's right. Okay. So Apple has been ruled to pay $250 million, and I plan on collecting at least half of that, to settle a lawsuit over Siri's delayed AI features. This is so predictable that there's a class action lawsuit from people like us that said, hey, you promised us, and you didn't give it to us. I was listening before we jumped on to Mark Gurman on Bloomberg, and he was talking about the question was, when is the Apple's new AI with Gemini behind it or other things behind it coming out, and he said that we will hear about it at WWDC, and then should launch in September. And he said if they don't launch it in September, that's going to be disastrous. That's just going to be not the end of Apple, but I wouldn't go that far, but it will be disastrous. Of course, Apple denies wrongdoing. It doesn't admit liability as part of the settlement. But if you purchased Apple Intelligence compatible iPhones between June 10th, 2024 and March 29th, 2025, expected payouts are expected to range from $25 to $95 per device.
I am due for that payout because I did buy that phone and that thing. But I will tell you, if they could just, on my behalf, just promise to kill Siri, they can have my money back. If they just reinvent their AI to be something else, then that would be fantastical.
What's interesting, Mark was actually talking, Mark, as if I know him, Mark Gurman was actually talking about really delving in a little bit to what the new AI Siri is going to look like. And I hadn't really thought this through yet, but it's not going to be Gemini on your phone or OpenAI or ChatGPT on your phone. They're using Gemini as the back end, but it's still going to be Siri, and they still have to create an experience, the front end experience of interacting with whatever chatbot, Gemini, but the rumor is that maybe others may be available to us. The front end experience for us is still going to be designed by Apple, and it'll be interesting to see how they do that.
I think that's fine if they could just call it something else. Like Siri has been a bone of contention since it was introduced. Like, call it something else.
Why?
Because I just feel like I have such negative feelings about my Siri, and I have tried so many times to love Siri, because I love the idea of Siri, but it's never worked out. Like, I think it would be better if they would just come out with the AI, like whatever their new thing is.
You don't have to use it. I mean, it's something people can turn off.
No,
yeah, but the thing is,
go ahead.
I want to use it. Like, I wanted it when it came out as Siri. Like, I love the idea of Siri. The fact that you ask Siri something and it doesn't go in your favor it's kind of a joke now. So I feel like it'd be great if they could just fade Siri off into the distance and introduce their AI as something new.
Can I tell you a little story about you? It's not a story really. So right before that, I've been using ChatGPT Atlas, the browser, for a while, and what I love about it is I can pull up the sidebar, I can chat with the web page, it'll interact with me, and then all those chats are part of my OpenAI. Like, it's fantastic. It has been the most unreliable browser I've ever used. Pages crash constantly for me. So I finally gave up today. I'm going back to Arc. I gave up, and now I'm in Arc, and I don't have that chat feature anymore, and I miss it so much. We have all been trained. We haven't all been trained. Many of us who use these tools have trained ourselves to love them and to really live by them, and so to not have a functioning AI companion on your phone is just it really isn't acceptable anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm with Tamara on this one.
I do question, though, the one thing about this class action lawsuit, and again, I benefit, go me. Is this something that now every single thing that comes out, it really has to be done, which means we can't, they legit said these things are coming. In the past, lots of things have rolled out when they've rolled out, and it hasn't been on a strict timeline. And now everything is so litigious does that stop innovation from the discussion from happening? Because the truth is, these are the kind of things that you can't just roll out. You kind of have to roll them out as an idea first, so that people can be ready for them and people can have their mind ready.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. There's a difference between rolling out Gmail, which had beta stamped on it for 16 years or something, and yet it was still pretty much fully baked when it came out. There's a difference
Right.
between that and launching Apple AI as the finished project, not as beta, not as alpha, as this is it. And then it wasn't it. So I don't think this is a good example. I agree with you that we got to have a beta culture. I'm on the beta of everything. I'm with you 100%. But, you know, it's got to be, it can't be in gamma form. It's got to be in at least alpha or beta for us to
Well, this
appreciate.
is what happens when a company like Apple is chasing the market. When
Yeah.
other people have these agents and assistants and in-house, sales boxes, they wanted in on that, and they decided to try and do it with Siri, and it didn't really go. The same with Maps. I mean, we saw that, crash and burn, and now they've rebuilt it and it works. Now, hopefully, they get a chance to rebuild Siri for the third time and get that to work. I've never had any trouble with Siri, so I stayed quiet in this conversation. 'Cause
I
you
like
all
Siri.
have your
I like
experience.
her. Yeah.
What
But
do
at
you
the
do?
same
What do you
time,
do with Siri that you like?
I use it for texting in a car. Like I can dictate a text and have it
Yep.
sent, and I can receive phone calls and tell it to leave a message. I also use the map. It talks me through all the travel.
It
And,
never
I've
It's
used
a
finds
Siri.
the
great
places.
hands-free solution, but it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
Yeah,
an AI assistant.
right. And I
Right.
have used it even with my Vision Pro. Through the Vision Pro, I can tell Siri to do things for me, and it'll log me into somewhere or do the thing for me. And then there's a utility in it. But I've always maintained that the more you use it, the more it knows you, and the more it knows how to respond to you, instead of just being an information source. So too many people asked it to be the search engine for what they want,
Right.
and it says, "Oh, I found this on the net," and okay, well, that was the right answer, except I wanted a better one. And ChatGPT blows the doors off that, so they have to upgrade Siri with Gemini to do many of those same things, where it can interpret your need rather than ask you to explain yourself.
Right. And this
My
law,
my thing is, I ask Siri for map directions in the car, and she doesn't listen to me. If my brother asks even my Siri, she responds, "I think she likes boys better than girls."
She likes boys better.
you
It's
need to
been
voice
proven.
train.
Just saying.
Voice train.
And if you have a Scottish accent, you have a heck of a time with the Siri, because she doesn't understand words.
So this next story is to me is really, really interesting. It's not a big story at all, but this is a story of something called Expo, which is an AI-driven cybersecurity startup, and it was founded by former GitHub Copilot creator. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name, so forgive me. But here's the part of this story that was fascinating. This is from, by the way, let me bring it up here. Sorry. This is from GeekWire. The part of the story that I think is fascinating is that this company's office, if you will, which just raised another $35 million, is a mailbox. They have no physical address.
They're
They
a virtual
are-
company.
I'm sorry?
They're a virtual company. These things were hot in the 80s when the web came to Web 2. They thought virtual companies, everybody would be everywhere, and it would just have its, one address or one legal address.
Well, this is it. The difference being, this is probably one of the first of those to reach unicorn status with a valuation of over $1 billion.
Right. Yes. They did very well there. Yes.
I mean, it's fascinating. And I guess my question about this story is, back when the pandemic hit and we all had to work remote, I think a lot of people talked a lot about, myself included, about the power and how wonderful it was to be able to work remotely, and we don't have to travel and all of this. And now in America, at least with the gas prices where they are, I can imagine a lot of people feeling that way. I just filled up today. It was almost $5 a gallon down here in Florida.
Oh,
Yeah,
David.
I know. I have it good. But I mean, is this going to be a thing? Do you think? I mean, do you think that
I think
people
it is. Yes.
are
It
companies?
already
like-
is. I think
I
it
think
is.
virtual companies are now understood that when you had to explain it in the 80s, people go, "Oh yeah, sure, that's going to
Well, they're
happen."
understood, but
And
a
now
lot
we
of those
see it's
companies
possible,
that were
yeah.
virtual during the pandemic made everyone come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Oh,
that's
and I have a
because they
story for
had
you on that.
that's because they had big buildings that they were paying rent on.
But that's
So that's
right,
a totally different thing. If you're
right.
starting up a company without that, because if you look at
And
like
the
the
overhead has
history,
disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah.
you look at the history of the working remote, it was like, hey, I worked for a company that we were told you can never work from home. And then within, 40 minutes, we were all working from home,
Working
like
from home.
12-hour days. And in the beginning, they were like, this is amazing. We can all do this. And then they got to the middle of it and they were like, you know what? We've done studies and people actually work better from home. And then they've now backed out of that to where they're saying, we need to come in 1 day a week so that we can have collaboration with our teams. We need to come in 2 or 3 days a week. And now they're like fully back in. We don't trust that people can be doing this work at home. So I
Right.
think
Bell
that
Canada has just fired 16 employees for pretending to be at work. And they
Yeah.
went, they went to work and they did the job and nobody noticed they weren't actually in the office. So yeah,
Oh, yeah. Tony,
it's
go ahead.
here now, the virtual.
No, I was just going to say that, it's really about real estate, and that's the bottom line. Everything's been proven that you can work from home and do quality work, and it's just that there's so much money tied up in real estate and office space, and they have to justify people coming back to work because there are so many people that are losing money because people are not using office space.
Right.
So that's the deal.
But the temple that I work for, we have 14 acres and a whole bunch of buildings on our campus. And we are currently in the process of negotiating with another community to purchase half of our campus. And as we were debating this sale, which is going to give us quite a bit of money to have in the bank to pay off our mortgage, things like that. And yet we, of course, have, we've had this land for 40 years, whatever, 6 years. And so there's a lot of emotional attachment to it. And one of the things that we kept talking about, Tony, was that this is essentially, owning property is essentially an investment. So let's say the land is worth, I don't know, $10 million, right? If the question is, if I had $10 million to invest right now, would I buy property? Is that a good investment? Because that's essentially what it is for us. We're not using this land right now. We're leasing it out. We hands off for us. So is that a good investment? And the answer for us at this moment, and not for the same reasons as this article, but no, real estate is not right now a good investment for us, at least. Fascinating stuff.
And yet there are people, organizations, companies that are going, an empty building. I wonder how many people we can get to live in it.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
I mean, we have so much need and so many empty buildings. And it's like, couldn't they get together? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Dave, oh no, sorry, you're not the only, because John is here. John, you have a Vision Pro also, don't you? Oh, you don't?
No.
Okay. So as the only Vision Proer here, Dave brought a really fascinating article to us. Do you want to kind of fill us in on this one?
Walk through it? Sure. Recently, a doctor doing eye surgery was using a Vision Pro connected to a microscope that shows it's a double-barreled microscope that shows 3D images of microscopic things. And he was working on it's a retina replacement of some kind. Anyway, he was fixing somebody's eye, and he had about 20 people watching. He was able to show from his point of view. He could share his screen, and they set it up so the people around the profession could watch this particular performance. And he's also done it with a number of other more easy surgeries, but this was like microsurgery. And he was watching himself do it through a microscope that was mounted on the person's face, where he could watch through the microscope what was going on. I found that just one of the first examples of how, in terms of being able to get the detail of something so high, that you can now use it to do surgery. the HoloLens was not 8K per eye, but that's what the lenses are for a Vision Pro, or the new Vision Pro anyway. And so this is something that I found rather interesting, because there's apps where you can explore the body uh, and take apart a body and show all the nerves and muscles and everything. And at some point, an artificial overlay on top of major surgery could be possible, as if you're looking inside the body, and then know where your scalpel's going. So I just thought this was interesting. Both, I'm not going to do this every week with the latest story on what people are doing with Vision Pro, but I found this one intriguing because it is an augmenting of a person. And we've been talking about AI as if it augments your job. But when it augments your skill or your expertise, then I felt it was appropriate.
The article talks about how the setup allows surgeons to view the surgical field in immersive stereoscopic 3D, overlay diagnostic information in real time, keep their eyes on the patient instead of looking away at monitors, and maintain sterile conditions because the interface is hands-free. That's actually for really powerful reasons why this makes a lot of sense. It's kind of amazing.
I've had surgery from a robot, actually. It was conducted by remote control. It's got 8 arms. Looks like a big spider. And you're asleep at the time, but it goes in without much openings, and it comes out without much reply. And I was out of the operating table after 14 hours, and then spent only a half a day recovering before they sent me home. And I recovered rather remarkably, like in 10 days. And that was major surgery. But now the way they can get into you without cutting you open is absolutely phenomenal. And I think with the visualization that comes with it, because they only could see through a camera where they were doing their thing. But if they could visualize it and not touch the patient, boy, it's going to be interesting.
Well,
Anyway,
I think it's basically Moore's law in effect. My original work as undergrad, I was working at a hospital where they had the essentially auditorium for the operating room, and it was seats around it, and the doctors would be looking from that down on the surgery. That turned into where they put the television studio. It was interesting because anytime I wanted to do anything in the studio, I had to go through scrubs and everything. Probably the cleanest I've ever been when I've operated a production. But, this is just a continuation of that, using technology to enhance doctors' powers. I think it's interesting. I think I might have fallen into the trap of buying one of those, but I have a prism issue, and my one eye will not correct for the Vision Pro. We'll see what happens with their next version of eyeglasses.
I'm waiting for, Dave, you sort of alluded to it, when there isn't even really a person involved. I mean, when we get to the point where robotics are certainly good enough at this point, I think we've been using them for years in surgeries. When you combine that with the vision of the stereoscopic 3D, all that stuff that Vision Pro offers, and then you couple that with AI, it doesn't seem that completely robotic computer surgery is that far away.
Well, and it might also speed things up, right? If someone can do more than one surgery per day, then, or because they're able to get in and out of places quicker, that actually just increases productivity and allows for more patients to be served. So I think that's another piece of it.
The HoloLens and other visualizers had a delay in them because of the processing, and there's no delay in this one.
So,
Right.
David, a lot of hospitals are working on Windows systems. So anytime I'm at a hospital and see the blue screen of death, I go, I'm not sure I want that to be taking care of my life.
Understood.
The Sphere had a blue screen of death, and everybody pulled out their cameras. So.
Go ahead, Lois.
I think one of the exciting things about that is not just what the doctors can do, but, and this has happened for a little while, everybody else doesn't have to stop and look at monitors and all that stuff. It's right there. It's right there in their face. And so even the person, not the person who's doing it, but the person who's assisting. So I think they're much more integrated, well integrated.
Yeah, they had to write their own code for putting the display in the screen so he could just glance over and see what the blood pressure was and all the rest. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, my friends. So let's dive into our main topic for tonight. Last week we had a really interesting discussion, which left me more confused than ever about my daughter's trajectory and university and college. But a really interesting discussion about higher education and the value of higher education, how it's changing given new teaching technologies, given what TED has been doing and what Khan Academy is doing and what they're doing together now. So this week we wanted to talk about expertise in general and what does it mean to be an expert or to have expertise in the age of AI. So let me start with this. I want to put forward I want to posit something that artificial intelligence and technology writ large has really eliminated the scarcity of information. That up until relatively recently, information was still, in many cases, behind paywalls or closed doors. That really is not the case anymore. I'll give you, well, I won't give you an example yet. We have had to shift from knowing answers to evaluating answers. So my starting question is, what are the human skills that are now going to define expertise in any given field? If it isn't anymore about knowledge, if it isn't anymore about having answers that other people can't have, having skill that other people can't get access to, what are the new components of true expertise in a given field?
Well, I go with tennis. You're not an expert in tennis until you've played competitively, and you have to do a lot of practice to get good at tennis. You don't just read a book about it and then become a tennis player. You have to build up muscle. You have to understand your balance and your momentum. And all of that can be studied and put into AI, and it can coach you as to how to be a better tennis player. But you have the expertise, not the device. So I don't believe AIs create knowledge. I've argued this before, and they don't do research, but they are a great research aid, and they're an aid to many other pursuits for expertise, but they're not going to make education, education is going to have to catch up in order to let it be a tool in the classroom. But I think when you go to the definition of expertise, becoming an expert is through experience, and it's part of the word.
Yeah, I think now a lot of it has to do with institutional knowledge. Like people who have institutional knowledge are going to work well with AI because it isn't for the faint of heart. If you start using AI to solve problems, you will realize you are working slightly harder to eventually get it to do things easier. And most people don't want to work slightly harder or even a lot harder. But the thing that keeps that, like I just did a project, and every time it would give me, here's the answer, and the answer looked good. And it wasn't until we put it into practice that I was like, actually, the reason that this really efficient system doesn't work is because actors don't think that way. And there's no way for a machine to know that. Only I would know that, or people who understand how a human comes at a problem. So it was giving me really efficient solutions that couldn't be implemented without my knowledge of how humans interact. So I think that there's certain things that that AI can't do. It is really good at sorting and organizing and problem solving and brainstorming, but it can't.
And that's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work, but so it does change things like entry level positions, right? It changes what work means, because for a lot of people, their knowledge work is working with spreadsheets, right, and working with trackers and tracking systems. And that part of it really can be done by AI. But you then shift. Like when I'm working with AI, I'm using all of my producing skills. I have to figure out what I need to give AI in order for it to be successful. The same way that I would if I have any other employee. I have to say, how do I situate this this work so that they can do their best work, whether that's a director, whether that's my assistant, whether that's an intern. And it's the same with AI. I can't just say, hey, do this thing. I have to say, do this thing. Here's all the information you need to do this thing. And can it do the sorting and producing faster? Yes. But that did not make me any less relevant to the process. It made other people less relevant to the process.
No, exactly. Wait, but hold on. That's the key. That's the key. If today's episode was, how can we make sure that Tamara has a job for the rest of her life, you'd be in good shape because of the type of work that you do. But there are a whole bunch of people, and this is an example I keep coming back to, but coding. I had a project that I started last spring, and I started it in vibe coding. I got as far as I thought I could, and then I hired a real developer to finish it off. 3 months into him working on it, I went right back to vibe coding, and I haven't turned back. And I'm not suggesting that what AI can produce is better, and I am certainly not an expert. But what it has given me is I don't need an expert. That's what it's given me, right?
But
what AI is giving me and helping me create is good enough to get the job done.
Right, but you weren't going to hire a person anyway. So you've
No, I
got two
was.
different things we're talking about. We have two different things we're talking about here. We're talking about corporations, which are always looking for ways to save money, and they have no investment in humans as it is. We see this every single quarter where we lay off 12,000 people because of what the numbers say, and then we hire people back and we lay people off in the next quarter. So we don't have a corporate structure that actually invests in humans. There are not people who are getting jobs today that will be in their same job for 30 or 40 years. That's not how corporate structure is functioning. The other side of it are people like me who work for nonprofits. I don't have the money, but also don't have the means to have assistants who are interested in doing this kind of work. They're just not interested in it. It doesn't give them enough existential excitement about their job to be working on spreadsheets. So finding people to do this work is actually harder than you'd think. And also it is work that I'm not going to pay for anyways because I don't have that kind of money. So this is allowing people like me to have a full-fledged assistant to help me do all of the things that last time we did this project, I was doing it by myself. It was like me doing that. So having an extra person, a fake person, but a person to hand off half that work to was not less work for me, but it was very different work. And are people going to have to get good at different kinds of work? Absolutely.
Right. And so
That's
you're
with
talking
any
about
technology.
how AI
multiplier.
may very well replace entry level positions, and that's true. The question for today that I'm thinking about at least is how it's also going to come for the professional experts,
Absolutely.
for the doctors, for the lawyers, for the producers. I don't know. Lois, go ahead.
I know who it's really coming for.
Hold on
It's
a
coming
second,
for
Dave.
the
Let me get
project
Lois in.
managers.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so the talk today is about expertise and what is an expert and what does it mean to have an AI give an answer that sounds like it came from an expert, but it didn't. And then how are the people who are needing that expertise going to know if it's from an actual expert or if it's hallucinating? So the question that I think is important is, what does an expert have that the machine doesn't? And Dave said, oh, they have physical experience. Okay, that's one thing. They have, I think, the insight to be able to tell if something is correct or not. So they might have an AI assistant like Tamara does, who's helping out in the background, but the final expertise is with the person who has done this, whatever this career is, long enough to be able to see the difference between that's right, that's not.
That's institutional knowledge.
That's what she was meaning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's institutional knowledge. Because
Well,
here's the
it's
thing.
not just institution; it's also judgment.
I want to push, but I think that is the key, right? It is emotional intelligence, and the discernment through a human lens is very different than discernment through an AI lens. And I do push back a little bit, and this is coming from the experience of just coming off of this project. And so I'm tainted by this project. I admit that up front. We hear a lot about people saying, well, AI gives you incorrect information. If you look at some of the incorrect information, a lot of it has to do with the information that you put into it. I got very little incorrect information because what I had to do was overthink what it needed to not give me that kind of information. And also to make sure that my questions, what I realized is, as I was giving it prompts and things to do, and it would give me something that was wrong, I stopped thinking about it as oh my gosh, that's wrong, I can't trust it. I started thinking about it like I think of my up and coming interns in our associates program, where I have Harvard grads who come in and they don't know the basics of how to put that an envelope goes this way and not this way. I don't look at them and go, oh, they don't know anything. I go, oh, it's my opportunity I've got to make sure that they have all of the tools that they need to be successful. And when I have that approach with how I deal with AI, when they come back with something else, I look and I go, why did they come back with that answer? And 9 times out of 10, it's me. I gave them a prompt. It took it totally literal. It gave me back information, but if I'm supplying it with the information that it is using to learn and grow from, then I'm going to get back better results. But if I go into it going, it lies to me all the time, and I'm going to be weary about that, and I'm not going to use it, then I'm not going to get as far as I got on this particular project.
I want to bring in John and Tony, but at first, just Leo shared something really interesting. He says there are less and less people, by the way, hi Leo. There are less and less people doing apprenticeships, less starting at the bottom of the ladder and learning, with influencers pushing the manosphere approach. Being an expert, and this is the part that really got me, being an expert is no longer seen as a goal. Is it?
Correct.
Is that even... do people aspire to being an expert anymore?
I think that is a really good point, because I get a lot of people. I will tell you what I did not have to worry about with my AI. I did not have to worry when I went back for a third or fourth time with the exact same question. Hey, is so-and-so in the database? I can't remember. It did not go, oh, Tamara, I told you this yesterday, or it did not give me a deep sigh, and I did not have to think even one time in my head, am I giving this AI meaningful enough work to where it is existentially excited to come to work and it won't quit on me tomorrow? I literally never thought about that. And so the fact that I have to think about that every single time, and I work with incredible kids who are super smart and who are like, I love them, but there is a limit to what they would prefer doing the fun things than doing the work things.
Of course.
And so there's a lot of that work that I absorb because I can't possibly give it to them.
Right. John,
So I think Leo's right.
John, did you want to jump in?
Well, I wanted to come here this week because a lot of my career was helping students document their learning to show their expertise. And it's usually demonstrated by things that they did, but expertise is something that you build on and grow on. So I think we all have an expertise. I think of AI in cooking. AI goes to the world and figures what is the appropriate amount of salt to put into this casserole. And it will analyze all the recipes and say, this is how much salt you put in. At the end, it's a human being who tastes it and goes, no, this is how much should be in there. For expertise is something we hold. An expert is somebody who we give that definition to. There are many astronomers who are amateur astronomers. They may be a lawyer, they may be a postman, but they've made discoveries because they have that expertise. So I think we have to be a different between how we define an expert. In the legal terms, an expert is defined, I became an expert witness on a copyright case on some technology. And they were saying, you have this level of experience Actually, I think we won the case because my pile of stuff was higher and deeper than the younger technician that they had. But so I think we have to be careful how we define experts and how we define expertise and how people represent their experience and their expertise. And some of the skills that the novices that Tamara talks about, and I've worked in theater, everybody wanted to be on stage. Nobody wanted to clean the Coke machines. But they also brought a different viewpoint that somebody like me who is tech only or people who are long in the tooth in the theater. So, and that was, is it expertise? Expertise at being young.
Yep.
So I think we may be giving too much credit, Dave, when you say you don't need that programmer. The Vive programming, you had enough to do, but there's probably some expertise that you're going to want from a human at some time. And I saw Dave raise his hand, so
Well,
release the
yeah,
floor.
I just want, before I let Dave in, I just, maybe, but I'll tell you, John, I haven't found that, I have not come across that moment yet. And I've created something that for me looks incredibly complex. It has, so maybe I'll
Well,
reach that
and I
point
think
where,
what you
where I'll
did,
need
I
that
mean, it's real
expertise. But
interesting that some people I'm working with are very good at Vive programming because they're very good at describing it. So a nameless friend who developed a product that was released and sold in 2 weeks, never touching a keyboard. It was his expertise at describing the problem, making sure it had the right information that allowed him to do that. We do the same thing in our washing machines. We've given that expertise to, if you just pour in this much soap and water and push a button, it's going to clean it.
so we
I wanted
just
to
give it
add
the
to
right
what
ingredients. Go ahead, Dave.
I wanted to add to what Tamara said about institutional knowledge, because experts develop their own methods and their own way of doing research and figuring things out. And often other people learn from an expert some of the methods. So it's a thing where, we had guilds before where we had a little less in the training and more of the, being at the knee of somebody to learn how to carve. So these kind of things they're different from being AI driven because they're an interaction with knowledge. And I think schools are going to develop ways of having interaction with knowledge instead of just rote learning. And I think Tony's been waiting a long time.
Tony's been so patient. Hey, Tony.
I'm actually, I'm laughing because I'm kind of in a different space than I think most of you are tonight in terms of looking at this, and I really don't think that regular people, are concerned with expertise.
Okay.
And by that, what I mean is that I think that unfortunately for most of us, we are in a good enough mindset. And that because we are in this good enough mindset in terms of people working on their jobs, they think that even if they push themselves and break their backs in terms of their work, that it's really not going to be appreciated. So let me just do good enough. So if a lot of people have this mindset of good enough, regardless to what it is, and you have something, a technology that will allow you to move to an expert level in something that you love, then I think that's fantastic. But unfortunately, I don't think that most people care. They're just trying to get through or get by or however you want to describe it. Now, I think for anybody here and probably anybody who's listening, this idea of becoming an expert in something is meaningful and powerful. but I don't think it's that way for most people. I just think that most people are in this mindset of good enough. And that's kind of sad, but that's what I think.
Yeah, so
David?
I think, yeah, I just want to say, I think you're right, but I disagree that it's sad. I don't know. And maybe that's because I'm that person. But I don't know. Lois, go ahead.
So David asks a question about whether or not people still wanted to become experts. And I heard that and I said, why would anybody want to become an expert? And I thought, expert is a term that is applied to people by other people. So I'm sure there are people who are online and influencers, as they're called, who are self-described experts. But most of the time, when I think of an expert, I think of who's doing that job really well, whether it's the best cake baker in the town or that plumbing company. Oh my gosh, you should see what those people can do. And they know all the answers. And yeah, I'd say some of those were experts, but I don't think that they would call themselves an expert. I don't call myself an expert on anything, though I am very involved in lots of things. So
Well, I'm
anyway,
not sure that
Well,
how it's defined changes whether expertise is still important. Tamara?
no, but do you want to become an expert? Is that my goal? No.
but I think if you look at if you go way back to the research of Lev Vygotsky, who said that everybody comes to the table with funds of knowledge. So you are an expert at things, whether you have declared that yourself an expert or not. So
Right.
as an educator, we have to look and say everybody comes to the table with something, and they bring something that you don't bring, and that expertise may be different than what we would that are traditional academics. It could be an expert in something else. But I one thing I would push back, because I agree with you, Tony, but the one thing I would push back on that is that I don't think that people are intentionally lazy in every case, and they're just like, this is just how it is. I think everybody comes to the table with different sense of what's important, and also different abilities, right? So if you're someone who thinks very quickly, or you have a creative mind, not just artistically creative, but intellectually creative, which a lot of us in tech do, because we wouldn't be doing something that required us to do this amount of kind of iterating without a certain skill set behind that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that someone is being lazy about it because they don't care about it, because it's just that isn't how they're. If you're a straight up 100 IQ, then things may come sequentially, right? It's just like this happens and then this happens and then this happens. There's not a laziness about that. That is how your life functions. If you're in a 130 or 140 IQ, you might skip think through things and get to the end differently, but that doesn't mean that that's necessarily better or worse than someone who thinks about it one way or another. The bigger issue is lots of people declare themselves experts in every single field. They are the leaders of the field, and they are the experts of the field who are not experts. They're not even that smart. They just come in and declare themselves as the people who know things. So I think that understanding that is not AI driven, and that is not a result of even technology. That is a result of how people come and enter into the world and interact with the world. And a lot of times people who are in positions of power, who aren't necessarily the smartest tool in the shed, they are given power by someone else who just, for whatever reason,
I
does
just
that.
want to say that I really, really was not saying that people are lazy. That's not what I was saying. What I was saying was that people's priorities and their character is influenced by the way in which they work. And I think that for most people, there is just not the mindset to go beyond the call of duty. There is this thing of good enough. It doesn't have anything to do with being lazy or not. It has
It's
to
more
do with,
apathy, is what you're saying.
No.
yes, in a way it is, but part of it is that there is this thing of the way we think about each other and the importance of, because you got these people that are in this space of, I'm just trying to survive. And if I can do this good enough to keep my job, then that's good. Whereas 30 years ago, somebody working on a job who had been on a job, they're looking for that gold watch, and they're going to do everything that they can because it has to do with how they measure their self-worth. There is in a way a crisis of self, particularly in the United States, from the standpoint of what is it that I value and how am I able to contribute? And believe it or not, this also is a part of this whole thing that we're battling with AI.
But let me ask this though, because is that a result of people having, this is good enough, so I'm going to do it? Is that coming from technology, or is that really coming from the fact that we don't have a gold watch anymore, which told us what the value of work was? It told
It's
us,
also,
if you have been here,
It's
I
a
acknowledge,
character. It's a
I'm
character issue.
acknowledging. Yeah, but here's the thing. I talk to young people all the time, and one of the reasons that they are so like on the clock about things. They're like, I only want to work on my paid clock time hours. I don't want to do any, I don't feel that as an educator, I should work outside of this. I'm like, why wouldn't you? That's your career. You want to get better at your career. But one of the reasons that that has happened is that this is a generation of kids who's looked at their parents who've worked really, really hard and worked 24 hours a day. And they're like, I don't see in watching the work that they put in and the things that they missed out on that they were valued, that they worked forever for a company that didn't care for them. So now you have a generation of kids who are saying, actually, I am only going to do what I need to do. But that isn't coming from a sense of I don't want to work hard, or I just want to get by. It's coming from a dramatic look at what has happened before them and saying, I'm actually not interested in that.
there's
And
a,
I think that that has created an apathy that I would love to shift, because obviously I think you miss out when you don't work hard at something and fail and succeed. I think not I think avoiding failure is a very hard way to get to success. And if you don't feel success,
just can I say this? Part of what you're looking at as far as the people with the gold watch, they felt like they were a part of whatever
right.
business that was.
Mhm.
But
They
One of
also felt that that company that they worked for the 30 or 40 years had their backs.
but they
And
didn't.
so for the argument
I gotta
for
get
the
Lois in,
argument
guys. Let me get Lois
So-
in. Sorry.
so one of the things about what Tony was saying is that if you work for a company and you are given a list of this is what you must do this at this time and this way, and you don't have any choice. And if you do something different, that's not good and you'll get fired. You're going to do what you're told to do. And if you know that making waves or suggesting improvements is not going to be well received, it's going to get you fired, then you're not going to do it. So, of course, you're going to do what you have to do. And that is good enough. Now, if you were an entrepreneur, if you were the kind of person who didn't work for a corporation, if you were out on your own, you'd be different. You'd be acting differently because you wouldn't be confined in what you were doing. You would be able to be creative.
Well,
But I
and we're
think
seeing in hiring, we're seeing that companies in their hiring practice are looking more for creativity and perseverance and being able to iterate and all of those things. I think, though, that what Tony and Tamara are getting at a little bit is that there has been a culture shift or a character shift, as I think Tony would say it, in how people think, in what people think about work. And this probably extends to how they imagine the idea of expertise. I have two teachers in the same classroom. One of them is about my age, 50-something, 55 actually, we're the same age. The other is, I think she's maybe 29. The 55-year-old gets to work a half an hour early every single day, and I have to beg her to take a lunch break. The 29-year-old shows up right on time and absolutely takes a lunch break every single day. Now, they're both amazing teachers,
Right.
but they're very different in how they approach their craft. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they also thought very differently about what it meant to be an expert teacher. I think for the young person, expertise means something very different. And in part, and this is the last thing I'll say, the way they define or think about expertise has been shaped by AI. AI and technology has told us that you don't have to be an expert at everything, and you don't have to pay an expert to do everything. You can write a will using OpenAI. You can find the answers on Google. The nature of what it means to be an expert has changed drastically, and we're seeing that reflected in the work of our.
But I also think that the nature of life has changed, right? I think Simon Sinek says it so well, where he talks about the fact that we look at our work differently. We expect more from our jobs now than we ever have in the past. We expect them to have we expect them to feel good all the time. We expect them to give us like existential pleasure, that they will define who we are in a positive way. And one of the reasons for that is that we used to have lots of different separations. We went to church for our community. We had bowling. We did all of these different things that made us a well-rounded person. And our work was the thing that we did from 9 to 5. And like Lois said, if that was the job, I just did the job. It didn't need to fill a piece in me that is unmet somewhere else. And I think that is, and whether that is because of technology that we're seeing a societal crumble, which certainly you can make a case for that, because you've delivered everything that you want to hear in whatever platform you're in, and is cultivated to you, but without having those other structures and those other systems that fulfilled different parts of your needs as a human, as a whole human, then we are expecting that from work. And when work doesn't give us that, we start feeling like I'm only going to do what is necessary in that time period because I'm not seen, I'm not heard, I'm not recognized. But we didn't necessarily need that from our work in the past, why people went to work for 30 and 40 years in the same place. So I do think that has shifted, and I do think technology is a reason for that, and that's a byproduct of technology.
John, go ahead.
Well, I see it differently than you do, Tony, because I really don't see this apathy. The students really haven't changed that much in the 30 years I was teaching. With my assignments is really clear. There were a number of students who did the minimal to get the grade that they wanted, but they were conserving their energy. I had other students, once they caught on to what they wanted to do or project-based learning, that they excelled beyond my greatest beliefs. So I think it's really where are people focusing on their energies and their desires. And I think the traditional workforce, you're talking about maybe having some of these failures that you talk about, but I see a lot of people working just as hard, being just as creative, pushing the envelope now than I've always seen. So I don't see this great apathy or lack of wanting to do the best job that they can.
Tony, do you want to jump in?
respond?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Go, Tony.
So,
And then Dave, I'm coming to you.
I think I'm just going to be, I was going to use the word transparent, but I'm not going to use that word. I'm going to say, I think that you and I may be looking at different populations. And I want to say that and I want to be careful the way I say this. I think that regular people, and Dr. Edelson, I'm just going to say this. I don't think that you interact a lot with regular people. Whereas I think I do interact with a lot of regular people, people who are day to day, going to their jobs and just trying to do the best they can under the circumstances in which they live. And I think that, and we can even go this far. I tell this all the time. When I started teaching, I worked in a school that was in the projects. And in that environment, we had to provide everything that the students needed. We had to make sure that we had clothes for them. We had extra food. We had just everything that you think that should be taken care of at home. We had to provide that in the school setting. And I want to say that we are still not far away from that situation, in that for regular people, and when I say regular people, I'm talking about people who are earning, at the minimum wage and sometimes lower. Those people struggle, continue to struggle, and they are doing the best that they can. How this actually speaks to me is from the standpoint of those children that I'm talking about that are now adults have the mind frame that they just do what they can to get by, to make it the best that they can. Well, yeah, we're talking about, close to 40 years ago, but still those needs are still there. And there are some places where the educators are still having to do the things that they need to do. And the fact of the matter is, I would say that in some ways things are worse. It's just not talked about. So when you talk about expertise in AI, it's the same thing for me. It's the same thing as being an educator and having to provide all this extra stuff that's not even a part of the educational thing, that it impacts how these same people will have access to technology and AI and even want to be an expert. If you're trying to figure out what you're going to do from day to day, you're not concerned with being an expert. And I just think that is part of what is going on. The digital divide is a real thing, and it continues to separate us even more. Some of us are blessed to have opportunities and to, I got this great Claude code that I pay $20 a month that allows me to create a fantastic website. But how many people don't have the access to even have internet in their homes or a computer? Most of us operate on smartphones.
Yeah.
The
I don't
majority of people
disagree that there's inequity. And one of the choices that I made had gone to an R1 research institute. A lot of my colleagues questioned, why did I decide to go to a teaching institute? And then when I left to come to Monterey, why did I go to an institute that wanted to serve underserved students? And the majority of our students at CSU Monterey Bay are first-time college students. So I think you solve some of these problems by providing education and opportunity. But I don't think AI caused this digital divide.
Right.
It may be aggravating it. And
I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
I wasn't saying that at all. I wasn't saying that AI caused any of this. I'm just saying that people, just like 40 years ago when I was in the classroom in an elementary school and having to provide lotion and change of clothes and shoes and all those things still exist. It's just not talked about. And so all I'm saying is that when you talk about this is a conversation that we can have, because most of us are in a space where this can be actually debated and looked at. But I think that regular people, and when I say regular people, I'm just talking about just below middle class. I'm not even talking about I'm not even including middle class. I'm saying just below middle class. They're struggling day to day.
Tony,
I want
there
is this
I want
good
to throw
enough
to Dave.
thing.
I want to throw to Dave. I just want to say that I do think that there is that part of being human, whether you're rich, poor, or otherwise, is to yearn to be proud of yourself, to yearn to have others be proud of you. And one of the ways that we do that is by getting really good at something. And if technology has changed the way we approach that, or whether we feel that it's even valuable to do that, that's to me, that's a shame, because I think that even people who are struggling, who don't have access, they still want to be really good at something. They want to be recognized in that way. Dave, let me get your voice in here.
Yeah, I've got two things that have come up in that, and our little sidetrack here about the divide. I was part of a resiliency project where professors were studying why it is that some people who come from unfortunate circumstances succeed or move forward or lift themselves out of it. And they found the principal thing was that they found someone they could trust and could talk to, and who would listen to them, and who would not necessarily mentor, but just accept them as who they were, encourage them in what they wanted to try, discover their passion, and really move them into. Maybe give them a leg up if they could, but most times it was just the fact that somebody could believe in me, therefore what I'm doing is valid and I should be able to do it. And then people lift themselves out of that. So that's my reaction to the conversation you were having about access and affordability and everything else. The thing I was waiting to talk about was around the trust and the effect on people of AI. The notion that we can't trust the information, that's a very important and continuing conversation, because it's not an expert if you don't trust it. An expert comes into a situation, and I trust an expert who walks into a problem and says, I'm not qualified to deal with this, but we can find a person who is. So that to me is an expert who knows his limits. But I worry about the narrowing of what AI can do in terms of being an agent in that process, because it's drawing upon pre-existing information and not new knowledge. And that even the generative content is being kept, that every query we're making now by the millions and now by the billions are being kept as information for future use by the AI. And it seems to me a closed circle that starts to get smaller and smaller. And we can't really trust it anymore, because we've discovered now, of course, that the AI will quite bold-faced lie to you, because in the pantheon of information that it has to draw from, human behavior often is, I have chocolate on my face. No, I didn't eat that chocolate cake. Well, we learn to lie really quickly because we're embarrassed or we don't know. I think infants are experts. Newborns and young infants who can't even walk yet are experts in getting their parents' attention. They know exactly what to do, and they learn this very quickly. And I think that's part of what we do. We layer on more and more knowledge to each other and between ourselves, and I learn from other groups, and I learn from you guys too. And it becomes more, and if it's narrowed down to a subject of expertise, then it's a narrowing. But a generalist knows a lot of things about a lot of people and a lot of places and a lot of answers to questions. Maybe the agentic AI is our generalist helper who can jump from overalls to welding glass and can give us the information we need to be at least good at something. But I don't believe we're looking at expertise.
Dave, I saw your comment about babies and their expertise in getting their parents' attention, and it actually made me think about what a lot of expertise has been pattern recognition. a skilled physician who can, who can recognize a rare disease from subtle symptoms, or an engineer, or a veteran educator who can look at a child and a student and really know whether they get it.
Person sees a horse and knows it's not well. Yes.
Right. And pattern recognition is what AI and technology is really, really good at. It's the edge cases that it's terrible at. And so maybe it's the real expertise is in navigating uncertainty. It's in approaching complexity and being able to take it apart and really appreciate it. I want to make sure that I get Lois in, and Tamara, I think I'm going to give you the last word. Lois, go ahead.
Okay, okay. So if you're talking about looking at patterns and determining what you should do, this is sort of like Western medicine, which is based on statistics. If I have a symptom, and it says, okay, 80% of the time, the person who is expressing this symptom has this wrong with them. So we'll treat that thing, even if we don't know what it is. 20% of the time, it's something else, but we won't bother to treat that because it's only 20% of the time. And so in other medical models, you might have something that's more specific to the individual. We might, test how your body's doing about something, or, I won't go into all of that stuff, but the difference between making assumption that normal is what you should treat versus having the knowledge to ask questions about the individual that you're working with to see if maybe that 80% is wrong this time. And I think that's where expertise comes into play versus an AI Western medicine model.
Tamara, go ahead.
I think one of the things that when we're talking about expertise in this context is we're talking about knowledge of specific data points or trivia. And I don't think that knowledge is solely trivia information. Knowledge is built on creativity. It is built in, in emotional intelligence. It's built in contextual judgment. And that is the thing that AI is not as good at as it is with pattern recognition and doing these tasks that that frankly humans aren't very return where we start the day great, and by the end of the day we are not as strong at staring at a bunch of little boxes as an AI is. So I think that when we're talking about expertise, one, that is someone else's judgment on us, but two, I think that expertise is more than trivial knowledge, than trivial pursuit. It is a lot of different factors, and I don't think creativity is going to go away. I don't think that having humans with emotional intelligence to analyze a bigger situation is going to go away. I think that is going to be where the next wave of people are going to find their work. If your work is just analyzing data, you need to pivot. You need to find other skills. But I don't think that that's going to change. I think that the things that humans are good at are coming up with new knowledge and are thinking things through creatively, meaning not just artistically, but creative thinking, where it is completely not the linear or not a pattern. It is the outside of the pattern. And I don't think that's going to change. I think that that's going to continue to be how we iterate and how we train new AI. But I don't think knowledge has ever been about, can you pass a certain test of words?
Wow. This is really profound and wonderful. Thank you. And I really also, as always, I want to mention that everyone who's having this conversation with us in the chat, in YouTube, in Mukana, Bo Cordell, Tommy, Courtney, Peter, good to see all of you here. I know that Leo is watching on YouTube. It's really, having your voices here is just fantastic. Alex is watching, Alexander Knight, Tlaloc. really wonderful having all of you here, and especially as always, having Dave and Tamara and Tony, and John and Lois here with me. Thank you so much for being a part of this
Well,
conversation.
David, before you
Go for it.
just really quickly, because what Tony brought up, I think, is something that we should talk about, and that was people spending their own money to get supplies for their students. And it's not something that's just happened, but this has been for a long time. The House just passed about a week ago a thing called the SEED Act, supporting early childhood educators' deductions. So for the first time, educators who were doing early childhood education, it was one of the persons who presented the bill was Jimmy Panetta, who's our representative here. Reach out to your senators for you or in the state, because this has been a long-term issue of us not supporting teachers who are sometimes much lower on the salary level are paying their own money to provide supplies, food, you name it, for their kids. So go out and support, talk to your senator. The House has passed this bill.
So
it's thousands of dollars too, by the way.
The bill
teachers
is currently kindergarten through 12th grade teachers and educators are allowed to an above the line tax deduction of up to $300. That's adjusted annually. This adds preschool, pre-K teachers to that. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And
the expert versus good enough. My wife is an expert, because when I put my clothes on and I say, "Is this okay?" because I think it's good enough, I'm told very quickly that I'm not an expert on picking up my own outfit.
Yeah. Our wives are all the experts. There's no doubt about that. We're here not as experts, but as people who are really, really interested in this stuff and talking and sharing and questioning every Thursday morning, afternoon, or evening, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we're also proudly part of the Office Hours community. So join us tomorrow morning in Office Hours. And every day there's a new Office Hours show. We'd love to see you there. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock Eastern, we will be in the Zoom test kitchen. We have some release notes to look at. They're coming on Monday. We will see you soon, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend.